From the days of fine art simulation in the 16-bit era to the highly rendered and theatric representation of the imaginative world on modern consoles, there is no doubt that video games have their place in art. However, in recent years there has been an ongoing debate of whether video games are an art form or not. Late great film critic Roger Ebert voiced his opinion that video games cannot be art, which resulted in backlash from many gamers. Although he stated afterwards that he should not have voiced his opinion, Ebert remained skeptical of the connection between video games and art. I would like to make a few points as to why video games should be accepted as an art form. The first point I'd like to make is looking at video games as a physical object. We all know that video games, unless downloaded digitally, have always taken on a physical form that the player needs in order to play the game. Games have been made in different sizes as well as different forms, but there's always a design on these objects that give us a sense of what the game is about, through color, images, and typeface. We can compare this use of design with movies, books, and music. Some developers even design the flip side of their cover for the aesthetic. What I believe is the most important formal aspect of video games and art in general is the construction and deconstruction of the medium. We can put in a background setting and only get an idea of what we are experiencing, but add a hero character and some music, and we have a functioning environment made up of constructed parts. When we deconstruct this environment by taking out one of its parts, our experience becomes incredibly different, showing the importance of individual parts. The use of construction in any medium is incredibly relevant to the way people perceive the final product. For example, if someone asked me 100 times if I prefer either Silence of the Lambs or Night of a 1000 Cats, I will choose Silence of the Lambs every time. However, these two movies are unrelated. Just because The Silence of the Lambs is much more effective at exemplifying the beautiful qualities of its medium does not directly make Night of a 1000 Cats less of an art form. Night of a 1000 Cats is easily one of the worst movies I have ever seen, but it's still a movie with different parts. My point is that art should not be based on what we think is good or bad, because that only makes art opinionated and never definable. Instead, we should look at everything with a blank slate and then configure its artistic qualities. This brings me to my third point, the aesthetic, or to be concerned with beauty or the appreciation of beauty. While many popular titles such as SimCity or the Madden NFL franchise function as a real-world simulator, other games like Shadow of the Colossus use fantasy elements to demonstrate an original story. Though these games go through different creative processes, they are similar in that they were made through creative thinking and expertise. We must keep in mind that this comparison of function and fantasy is existent in many parts of the art world. Functional art may still express fantasy elements, but they tend to rely on symbols and recognizable forms, whereas fantasy elements experiment with recognizable form to raise questions on why it exists, thus making its aesthetic more important to the average viewer. From the structured design of hard copies to the elements and principles of art composed from pixels, video games should always be known as an art medium. Whether you enjoy playing video games or not, I hope you learned something from this video that you can appreciate. Because this video only touches the surface of video games as art, there is so much more to explore through this fantastic, creative medium. You can continue this journey yourself. The next step is to push that power button.